On July 24th, 2014, in a quiet town where nothing ever happens, a 13-year-old girl, April Millsap, went for an evening walk with her dog on a familiar trail. But this time, she didn't come home. Before she vanished, she sent a chilling text, one that hints she knows she was being followed. And hours later, her loyal dog will lead rescuers straight to a horrifying discovery. What happened to April Millsap? What's up, guys? Welcome back to Voltage and Villains. Today we will be talking about April Millsap, the girl who helped solve her own murder case. Let's get straight into it. April Millsap was around 14 years old around the time that she passed away. She was born in the year 2000 and lived in a small town in Michigan called Armada. The town is so small that nothing ever really happens. It's one of those small towns where people say, I feel comfortable leaving my door unlocked because I trust my neighbors.
I hate that.
One of those towns that just everyone knows each other. So it was so small that before April Millsap, nothing had happened for about 50 years before April
No
Millsap.
crime at all.
Like no insane crime. You probably had like larceny, little thefts,
But no murders.
things like that. But nothing crazy like murder. But also their police department only had 2 full-time police officers and a chief. So that's 3.
3 officers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the population of the town is? Because that's egregious.
It's probably very small. It's probably like...
Unless there's only 10 people living there, 3 police officers is egregious.
It is.
I don't care how safe. I don't care if nothing has happened in the last 200 years since its inception.
Not inception.
Like you need more cops.
You
than that.
you do need a little
just
bit
in
more.
case. That's the plan A team. What about the B team? What about backup for them?
That's true.
All right.
I guess backup would be state police, like anywhere. April had 2 dogs. She had a dog named Penny, which was her best friend, and another dog. She also had 2 cats. April also was very into fitness. She loved to go walking, hiking. It was her thing. It helped her stay fit. So because she loved fitness so much, her boyfriend that she had been dating for about a year, for Christmas, he had bought her a fitness app to help her track, okay, like how many calories are you burning? How many steps are you taking? How long are you walking? What distances are you walking? So he bought her an app like that, and she used it every day. So especially on the day that she passed away, she was using the app because she went on a hike. So around 5 p.m., July 24th, April goes, on a little walk to a very known trail in Armada, Michigan, the McCombs Trail. She goes on with her dog Penny and brings Penny some food, some water. You don't want your dog to be hungry or thirsty while you go on a walk. You want to be fair. She probably leaves maybe like 5:30, like early evening. She goes on a walk. The walk, it was probably estimated to be about an hour and a half from her house to the trail and back. An hour and a half passes by and her mom starts to get worried. She's like, wait, hold on. Like, you're not home yet. You're usually home at this time. But she kind of brushes it off a little bit because April does this teenager thing where she goes and hangs out with her boyfriend while being on hikes and going on trails and things like that, even while walking her dogs. So her mom brushes it off for a little bit more. Maybe, I don't know, probably gave it another 15, 20 minutes. Try to be fair. But afterwards, she kind of got worried because she was like, okay, well, the Penny is with April. And Penny's probably thirsty and hungry or probably tired of walking, just wants to come home and lay down. So April's mom texts her and she's like, hey, can you come home and bring Penny home? She's probably tired. But she never received an answer. So she was a little confused as to why April wouldn't answer the phone. That was not in April's personality. Her mom started texting and then calling and still didn't receive an answer. Because she knew that there was a possibility that her boyfriend, Austin, was there with her, she called him. She was like, hey, Austin, are you with April right now? And he was like, no, I'm not. I'm just getting home. I was with my friends about 45 minutes away. We were moving a TV. So now that's when April's mom really starts to get worried because Austin's not with April. So it's kind of like, whoa, hold on. So now April's mom asked Austin for help to go look for April. It's around 8 p.m. It's getting dark. She's worried, like any mom would be. So she goes and she waits for Austin to come over to her house. And then they both go with Austin's friend to go look for April on the McCombs Trail. They agree to part ways to, conquer, to divide and conquer. They agree to call each other if they find anything. Probably maybe like a few minutes into trying to find April, Austin calls April's mom and tells her, hey, can you come to where I'm at? I'm a little bit further up the road on this street. I found something. And April's mom is like, okay, not really worrying, but like trying not to worry. So April's mom gets there and she finds Penny with animal control and the police.
Mm.
And this happens around 8:30 p.m. 10 minutes earlier, around 8:20 p.m., there was a couple walking on the trail and they found a dog that was barking. And the dog would run back and forth between the trail and then into the woods and then back into the trail and then back into the woods. You know, that thing that usually dogs do when they're trying to point you to something, like, come, look what I found. So the man started paying attention to the dog and followed the dog into the woods. So now, the dog is running, trying to show him something. And now he starts looking around because he's like, hold on, what is this dog trying to show me? I'm trying to understand what you're trying to show me. So the man looks down on the floor, a little bit probably into the woods, and he sees a pair of white shoes just there in the middle of the woods.
Just shoes?
Just white shoes. Just a pair together.
Okay.
And he's kind of confused, like, okay. Then he looks into the distance towards where the dog is, and he sees what looks like a mannequin. So he starts walking towards it. And as he gets closer, he finds out it's a body. But he didn't know it was April. Nobody knew it was April until much later. Mm-hmm. So now he finds the body. He calls the police. He's like, hey, I found a body. They bring animal control to make sure Penny's secured, not going to run away. The police come. They're like, hold on. What is going on? There's only one police officer that night that was there.
I mean, of course, you only have two other teammates. So like, yeah.
And I think this was like a weekend.
Okay.
So definitely there was only one police
officer. How the hell did
officer.
they even divide up the shifts? All right.
You have so many questions.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Okay.
So they called state police for backup because one police officer is not going to solve the entire case.
Especially a police officer that's never seen a murder before.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So they call the state police, and the state police start looking and start seeing like what's going on. When they look at the body, they find out that girl's body has footprints all over her, like shoe prints all over her face and her neck. And her clothes are ripped off and her pants are pulled down to her ankles. She's dead.
Yeah. So this is a potential, well, it is a murder.
Right.
With potential SA involved.
Yes.
That was also very violent.
Yes.
Wow.
They determined on the scene when they saw the shoe prints on the girl's face that the person who killed her must have been angry. And that's what they assume with moving forward. So now, a few minutes later, they find out that April's mom is looking for April, and that the dog that animal control has is April's dog. So they're kind of like, whoa, this might be April. But they don't tell the mom yet. They don't want to freak her out. So they take her to the precinct and they start asking her questions. What was April wearing? What was she doing? Was she supposed to meet up with anybody today? Do you know if, she was supposed to do something? April's mom gives the typical answer that she would always give, right? No, I don't think she would meet up with anybody. She didn't tell me. My daughter is not the type of person to just go and meet up with random people or to just go and disappear. So she tells the police officers, yeah, she, sometimes she meets up with her boyfriend, Austin, while walking the dog, but she always does this. It's no big deal. She brings up Austin's name. The police go, hold on. Sometimes she meets up with Austin. Weird. They kind of start looking into him a little bit, but not fully. So
Well, not weird, but like if
You
you're
become
saying,
a
if
suspect,
yeah, you
technically.
naturally have to become a suspect,
Yeah.
and some people would be offended at that, but like it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like we're just trying to figure out what happened. I was told that sometimes she meets up with you when she goes on these, and you were nowhere to be found
Yep.
when all this went down.
Yeah.
So I just need to ask you some questions.
Yep.
So it makes sense. So they ask him some questions.
yeah.
Okay.
No. They don't ask him questions yet. They
Okay.
just find him a suspect, especially after the mom said that they sometimes meet up.
Okay.
But earlier, right before they started looking for April, Austin told April's mom that he had received a text from April saying, "I almost got kidnapped, OMFG."
What?
But he had not seen that text until probably after she called, after April's mom called, because he had no service.
Because of where he was at with his friend?
Yes. Because of what he was doing. I guess he was probably in a road with no service or no cell towers around. So he didn't see the
got a
message
text
until later.
from April that said, I almost got kidnapped.
OMFG.
Whoa.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So now the police don't question Austin yet, and they let the mom go, but they tell her that they found a body on the trail. So this is after they release her, mind you. They don't want to tell her while she's in custody. They don't want to worry her. So they just tell her like, hey,
FYI, we found a body, but we're not sure, so don't panic yet.
Exactly. So now the next morning, they're like, we want to talk to Austin. The mom said, hey, Austin usually hangs out with her. We want to see what Austin was up to. So Austin goes and he tells him, hey, I was out with my friends. We were moving a TV. We were about 45 minutes away. When I received April's text, it was much later than she had texted me, and I didn't see it until later after that. I don't know. I hadn't seen her. We got into an argument the day before. And police were like, dude.
Wait, So,
So he received the text from April saying, I almost got kidnapped. He says he didn't see it. And then he tells them, hey.
I didn't see her all day because we
into
got into an argument yesterday.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And they're like, okay.
Yeah, bro, you have to be prime suspect numero uno at this point.
Because now Austin tells the police that, hey, April found something on my phone and she didn't like it. So now they're like,
oh, God.
buddy. So now they hold him there for hours.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you have to tell us the truth. Like they kind of keep badgering him. You know that thing that police officers do when they
good
find
cop,
you a suspect.
bad cop, pressure you a little.
Yeah.
Hopefully you confess.
But he didn't confess. He didn't budge. He had nothing to confess to. So he goes and he's kind of like, okay, he's there for hours. Austin's dad is like, he's been here for hours. He needs to eat. He needs to go home. He has things to do. He has a life. He has school. So they let him go. But they're like, you're still a suspect, buddy. You're
suspect
not free.
numero uno.
You're not free.
Yeah.
It could be you.
Yeah.
So the police start kind of like investigating and seeing what's happening. And literally, because it's such a small town and nothing has happened for such a long time, the fact that they found a body in the middle of the woods next to the trail becomes news. Everywhere it just starts getting news after news after news. Like, we found the dead girl's body in the woods. We're investigating it. It becomes news. It's like the talk of the town. So now everyone's like on edge. Everyone's like, I'm not going on the trail. I'm not doing anything. I don't trust anybody. I'm locking my doors.
Oh, now we're locking doors. Yeah. Okay.
Not now.
You see what I mean? Like shit needs to happen for
Something
people to
needs
want to
to
lock
happen.
doors. I hate that.
Something needs to happen.
Yeah.
So, the police start investigating it and they get a whole team together. Obviously, state police, FBI,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's going on. Nothing ever happened in a small town. We need FBI. So they put together a little command center in the middle school. It consists of maybe about 70 to 80 officers trying to investigate what's happening in the small town. This is random. It's a random killing. So they get very curious. They start investigating. they start looking into Austin. They start looking into his alibi, seeing what he did. They really tried to press him to see if it was him, but his alibis checked out. Everything made sense. So they were confused. The news came out, and in one of the news, they asked for tips. They said, hey, if you know anything or if you've seen anything or you were around the trail around this time, please give us tips. And one of the tips that comes in is a guy he was walking in the trail with his kids, I believe, or riding a bike. And he says that he saw something weird in the trail that day. He saw a guy in a bike and a girl really close to him. And he tells the police officers, obviously it's alarming to me because on that trail, you're not allowed to have a motorcycle, a bike, any motored items there. So he's like, that's alarming. Why is he here? The guy remembers the motorcycle, and funny enough, lucky for the police, the guy was a motorcycle enthusiast. So he knew the exact bike that he saw. And he described it to the police. He even found the photo and showed it to them, like, this is the bike. This is it. Look for this. The police obviously are like, okay, they just take it as a tip. They're like, okay, we'll keep it in mind. They keep investigating. They keep trying to find people, find anyone who would do anything.
And at this point, they have not said who the girl is. And the mom just thinks that her daughter's missing. How many days later is this?
This is 2-3 days later.
So is it safe to assume that April's mom knows that that's her daughter without them saying it at this point?
It would be safe.
I haven't seen. My daughter went to this trail,
right,
with Penny, the dog, our dog. We found the dog, but we haven't found April. But you guys are saying you found a body.
Yep.
So you're hoping for the best,
right?
But you kind of suspect the worst because they haven't officially said April's name yet, huh?
No, they haven't.
That's torture, man.
It is torture, but here's what kind of helped a little bit. Maybe a day or two later. Obviously, it seems very long because it is long for a parent when you don't know where your kid is and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And they don't tell you anything. They just tell you they found the dead body, but your kid is still missing. So probably like a day or two later, an investigator comes to April's mom and her stepdad's house. And they're like, look, we're here for body identification. And they show her pictures of the body. It was bad.
Damn.
It was bad. Apparently, the officer was even moved. Like the officer was even
most of the time they are because they're looking at something that's hella gruesome.
Not just gruesome, they're looking at their loved one in a picture, deceased.
Exactly, yeah, and you're the one that has to show it to them. And then it's gruesome
on top.
Exactly,
and then now you have to show it to them.
And you have to show it to them. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So they identify the body and they say, yes, that's April. Like the clothes, the face, everything. So now we talked about it, right? They discovered They discovered shoe prints on April's face, on April's neck. They discovered that the clothes were ripped off and her pants were pulled to her ankles. And they do an investigation. They do an autopsy. The autopsy comes back and they find out that she died because of asphyxiation. But there was a shoe print on her neck. Yeah. So that was a determined cause of death. So they believe, the autopsy people believe, that April was knocked in the head, and based on the results that they got from their autopsy, April was hit on the head multiple times with a hard object. April was stepped on, and April's neck, her trachea, her windpipe was broken.
Oh, wow.
And that's what caused asphyxiation. So literally they're revealing this to the people and they're asking for more tips. They're like, hey, whatever tips you have, please just bring them to us. So now obviously they start looking for the bike. They started looking for the bike that the guy had described. And luckily, randomly, an investigator was driving to work and he saw that exact same bike as he stopped. He took a picture of it and gave it to the other investigators.
Wait, he just saw the bike. Where did he see the bike?
He saw the bike just parked in a garage.
Oh, damn. Okay.
It was probably the randomest thing ever.
Yeah.
He was driving to work, looked over there,
I saw the bike in a garage and was like, oh, that's the bike.
That's literally the bike.
Okay.
That the guy described.
Yeah.
He gave it to investigators. Probably they didn't fully get a chance to look into it until, they started looking and diving into more tips and things like that. Then they started coming out with more tips. More people started coming. Oh, I saw this guy on the bike trail around that same time. He was being very weird. There was this mom and this lady that were riding their bike on the trail. And they saw April very close to the guy, but she looked uncomfortable. And the guy was wearing his helmet. So he was following April, but it was a little bit too close. He was on a motorcycle. And all the daughter remembers is that the guy comes up behind them, cuts them off, and makes a U-turn. So April was walking, the mom and the daughter and April are walking in opposite directions. And obviously the guy in the bike is following April. Mm-hmm. So the guy made a weird move where I guess he kind of like cut them off and then went towards April or something like that.
As if he's coming up behind April now. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, as if he's following her. April,
but then at this point,
they're both with.
So April's walking one way. The mom and the daughters are walking another way.
Right.
But the guy on the bike is he's next to April.
He's next to April.
So then he drives and cuts them off and comes back to April.
Yes. So April walks ahead, says hi to them. April goes, I guess, kind of like in their side of where they're walking to kind of get away from the guy.
Okay.
And the guy, in order to catch up with April, cuts the mom and the daughter off.
Oh.
To start following April even closer.
Yeah. Okay.
So the daughter remembers that very vividly because she's like, why would you cut me and my mom off? We're together. You could tell we're together in the trail. We're riding bikes. Mm-hmm. So she remembers that and she tips the people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And more people start coming forward. I saw this guy in a bike. He was doing something weird. He took his helmet off. He was just standing there. He was coming off from the woods. Mm-hmm. Just all these different types of tips. So they start trying to, obviously, as police officers doing an investigation, they try to get a composite sketch. And some lady gives them a description of the guy. They do the sketch. And then another lady comes forward and is like, that's very similar to the guy I saw, but that is not the guy that I saw. He didn't have curly hair.
Oh, gosh.
He had straight hair.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, okay. They kind of took her tip and kind of like, we're like, okay, cool. Never heard back from them. Never heard anything. Mm-hmm. The investigation continues, and the investigators ended up following on the lead to the motorcycle. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, well, obviously the motorcycle matches the description that the guy gave, right? So we're going to follow the motorcycle because there's a lot of motorcycles registered. There's a lot of that specific type of motorcycles registered. But the fact that the guy
in this tiny town?
Not in the tiny town, but in the state. It's very hard, I guess, to find in a pinpoint location, like how many vehicles are registered
in that town. Yeah. Because you can do it outside of the town, so it's the whole state.
It's the whole state.
Okay.
So there were a ton.
Yeah.
So the fact that they came upon that picture and the motorcycle was just there.
Yeah.
They followed that lead. They were like, okay, it was in the town. It's a possible lead, right? Because April was killed in this town. Obviously, the killer was in this town. He had this motorcycle. They followed the lead and they went to the person's house in which the motorcycle was in. And a guy answers and he's like, hi, how are you guys? And he's kind of being okay. He's not being standoffish, but he's not being cool. He's being like, I guess the regular helpful that you'll be. So they start asking him about the bike and he's like, I don't have a bike. What do you mean? He kind of starts like being standoffish. And the cops are like, well, we saw a bike here the other day. And he's like, oh. He's like, that's not my bike. He said, that's a guy I know. His name is James.
Snap.
And he lives in another town.
So not in this tiny town.
Not in this tiny town. He lives in another tiny town.
Oh, wow.
So he gives investigators the name of the guy. He's like, that's his bike. I don't know. I was just buying weed off of it.
Oh, gosh.
They leave him alone. They're like, okay. They start looking into the guy that owns the motorcycle. Things keep moving forward. Investigation keeps moving. They keep trying to find more eyewitnesses, right? They kind of keep trying to hone in, but
because I'm assuming, like on these trails, especially in like a small town, there's not like a ton of cameras. It's not like it's Central Park.
Yes.
Right. You're talking about a very big park in a very small town with very few people and very few resources to catch people like that. So yeah, you have to rely a lot on eyewitness testimonies and people coming forward. Other than that, it's just cold case.
It's just
blank.
So, the police start trying to find April's belongings because the mom said that April had a book bag, obviously, that had Penny's food and Penny's things in it. April had her phone.
Yeah. Where's April's phone?
Right.
Isn't that where the app? Isn't that what the app is on, or no?
Exactly. That's where the app is on.
Gotcha.
On her phone. Yeah. So they start trying to find her phone, but it's not in the body. It's not near the body. So they get a dog and they give her April's. They give a dog. It was a male dog. They give it April's scent. And the dog, they made sure that the dog was good because they tested the dog to see if it would follow April's scent back to her house. That was like the test to see if like the dog was good. Yeah, you know what I mean? If the dog could follow the lead. So the dog ended up passing the test, and they kind of let the dog start sniffing around, and the dog ended up finding April's phone. Wow. In the middle, from a long trail, it was like in the middle of bushes outside of the trail, like towards the end outside.
So clearly this person took her phone and ditched it.
Somewhere. The phone was broken. When the police tried to ping the phone, it rang one time and it never pinged again. Wow. So they were like, no. Like, that's when they got the dog. The dog found the phone. Yeah. Now they start doing phone forensics. Phones, especially back then, like, they were a little bit easier to hack into and do little things. Nowadays, they're a little bit harder. So it probably didn't take them as long.
Nowadays, it's a little harder to hack into, but it's a lot easier to get a lot more data.
That's very true.
Because you would have been able to ping it regardless if it's like jacked up or not. Now. Yeah.
But back then, if it was jacked up, one ping, gone. Yeah. So they try to ping, they get the phone forensics back after a few weeks. And they notice that there's a few things on the phone. Phones, you and I are both technology people. So we know that phones, essentially, they kind of function in folders, right? A folder for your home screen, a folder for your apps, a folder for your functions, a folder for this, a folder for that. So
this is back-end stuff.
This is back-end.
Yeah, this is not what you see when you open up your iPhone, but This is like how the inner workings of the phone is able to show you that and store that information.
Yeah, it's mainly stored. It won't. It will show it to you in a pretty picture, but it'll be stored completely different.
But the way it's stored is what you're talking about.
And sometimes it'll be stored in code.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So basically, when the police officers start looking into the phone and the phone forensics, they find April's last functions on her phone. Mm-hmm. And they're like, interesting. So they find a picture of April's message to Austin.
A screenshot.
Yes.
Of
April's.
I almost got kidnapped.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're like, this is interesting. But mind you, your phone creates screenshots of every time you move on to another app.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So like if you're on iMessage and then you move on to Spotify, your phone will create a screenshot of the last thing it saw on iMessage before you moved over to Spotify.
Oh, that way you can easily do the function to scroll up and have the tab
open.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So but this is 2013 technology that we're talking about. So it was a
So
little.
it's a lot more basic.
It was a little. It was it's a lot more basic.
Yeah.
Right. But there were still screenshots and things like that. So the police officers look into it and they're like, okay, well, April must have died between the hours of 6:30 and 8. Right. So they're like, okay. They look at the phone. They find the screenshot of her texting Austin, OMFG, I almost got kidnapped. Then after that, they see another picture of the fitness app that she was using. And they're like, oh, this is what she was doing. She was on the fitness app. So they contact the people who made the app. But these people are in Denmark. They're like far away.
In Europe,
at a whole
Denmark.
At a whole nother time zone.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey guys, like we need this information because this is what the girl was last on. So they didn't get a response till months later. Months later.
Of course. It's kind of like that company we reached out to the other day about a package we got and it had a neighbor's mail inside of our box. And it's like, first of all, we don't even know how it got in there. But second, we don't feel comfortable consuming the contents that was inside the box because clearly someone got into the box and was able to reseal it.
Exactly.
And to this day, I've never received a message back from them. And it's been well over a year.
Exactly.
Shit like that is not helpful, companies.
Right. But companies will listen to more of like an FBI agent versus someone like us.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean?
But like, look, they still took months to answer them. And that's for true. A murder.
Well, they had to, I guess, put things together. You know what I mean? They probably asked for specific information.
That you have to go back and like really, really look for. You have to go back
and look as to
I'm
what
just
this
saying,
user
with my
exactly
experience,
was doing.
they usually take a freaking long time, and companies need to get better at that.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're traumatized.
Yeah.
Okay. So now they're waiting for the phone, for the information from the app to come back. And meanwhile, they know the name of the guy that owned the bike. They start tracking him down. They know that obviously he lives in another town in Michigan. So they're like, okay, cool. I think it's Wales or something like that. They look into him. They go over to his house. And they see something very interesting. It's a very large house in the middle of nowhere. Just very large. Just like damn near a mansion with a bunch of field all around it. And they're like, this is odd, but okay. So, they knock on the door and an older guy comes to the door. They're like, hey, we're looking for James. The guy's like, yes, I'm James. And they're like, huh? Like, that's not the description that we got from witnesses. You're an older man. Witnesses told us that this was a guy in his probably early 30s, late 30s. You do not look like him. So they ask him, hey, do you have a son that goes by James, or his name is James?
Yeah,
and
because
yes.
the license plate is registered to probably him, but you most likely have a son or a relative that drives the bike.
But the son's name is also James.
Wow.
So it's James and James Jr.
James Jr., okay.
So the son comes out and he's with his girlfriend and his mom. And they kind of start interrogating him like, hey, this is your bike. Were you in Armada on this day around this time? And he goes, yes, I was. I was visiting my brother. My brother lives in Armada. And they were like, okay, cool, great. Wonderful. What were you wearing that night? And he shows them. He's like, I was wearing this. They're like, okay. The investigators ask James Jr. what type of shoes he was wearing that night, just to see if the bottom of the shoe fits the same print that was found on April's body. And he tells them he was wearing some K-Swiss shoes, and they're like, that is not the pattern of the shoe that was on April's body. So they're like, okay. They let him go. Then they start looking into it, and they start looking into his brother. They question his brother.
Now, quick question. Is his brother the person? No. So there's a guy that bought weed from James Jr.
Yes.
But that's not his brother.
But that's not his brother.
Okay,
That's just
I
a
gotcha.
random guy that bought weed from him.
bought weed from him.
Yes.
Okay, but
Yes.
James Jr.'s brother
Jr.
lives in Armida. Okay.
Lives in Armida.
And it's not Weed Man. It's
Now-
it's not the guy that purchased weed.
No, it's not
Okay.
the guy that purchased weed.
Gotcha.
No.
Okay.
So they start interrogating the brother, and they're like, "Hey, can you show us your text between you and your brother? Because your brother says that he met up with you and he was messaging you." And the brother's like, "Yeah, I can show you my text." And they're like, "Well, can we get the phone?" And they're like, "Nope." And the guy's like, "Nope, I don't want to give you my phone. I don't want to share my phone with you. I'm not going to do it. But I'll cooperate with you. I'll show you my phone right now." And they were like, "That's weird, but okay." So they kind of like discarded him a little bit, but not really, because he didn't want to show his phone. So going forward, they kind of start looking more into that family a little bit more, because they're like, okay, well, the guy that we spoke to in his 30s, the junior, fits the description that the woman said, and now his brother doesn't want to share his phone. So now we're
Wait, the brother doesn't want to share his phone?
The brother.
Or
no. James Jr. had already been questioned the night before.
So
And
it's the brother
it's
that
the
they
brother.
asked to show the phone, and
Yes.
he said no.
And he said no.
He said, "I'll show you text messages now, but I won't
But
I won't give it to you,
yes.
so you can go do whatever
you
deep dive.
want with it."
Gotcha.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So now apparently the detectives want James Jr. to come in and give a statement. They're like, "Hey," they call him, "Hey, can you please come in and give a statement?" He's like, "Hey, I'm a little busy today. I can't. I'll probably come in later tonight." Later tonight passes by after they visit the brother, and they're like, "Hey, can you come in now to give a statement?" And James Jr. goes, "No." And then he just starts spazzing. He's like, "Why would you go and try to investigate my brother? You guys are trying to pinpoint this on us." And he just starts going crazy. And the police officers are like, "Why are you doing that? That's what?" So now they're like, "You don't want to give a written statement. You're going crazy. You're a suspect."
Yeah.
Because your brother didn't want to share his phone. Yeah. And you're going off. You're a suspect. So they kind of start looking more into him and seeing like what he's about, seeing like if he's had any criminal history, if he's done anything bad. And turns out he has. He had larceny. He had probation violation.
I mean, he's a weed dealer too.
Yes, but in the state of Michigan, it's legal to grow and
Sell weed.
Sell weed.
Oh, wow, I did not know
Yes.
that.
You can have a special permit, and we'll
Yeah.
touch upon that later, because it's gonna get interesting.
Oh, okay.
So they're like, "Okay, great. We're gonna really look into you now, because you're very suspicious. Even though your shoes don't match the crime scene, we're looking into you." So they start trying to, find ways to look into him. And as they're trying to find ways to look into this guy, they also find out that his dad was a criminal. They found out that when his dad was about 48, like the James Sr., when James Sr. was about 48, he also got arrested and charged on a 4th degree and a 2nd degree for assaulting and assailing a minor. 2 minors.
Wow. Whoa.
2 minors. One was very young, probably like 12, 13, and the other one was like 15, 16. So they're like, no. You guys are suspicious AF. So they're like, okay. They look into them. They start trying to, I guess, catch ways to get them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough reasonable suspicion to go and be like, "We want to search your house," or "We want to arrest you." They don't have any of that.
Well, they don't have enough evidence to go to a judge to get
Anything.
a warrant
Yeah.
to go search their house.
Well, anything. To do anything.
To do, yeah.
Yeah. So meanwhile, they start investigating them. They get the information from the app bag. And they find out that April kind of like was running around in circles at some point in the woods. There was 2 points in time where she was running around in circles. And the last period of time before her phone broke, she was going at a really fast speed, maybe like 18 miles an hour type of timing.
Which she
And
could
then the
not
phone died.
sprint.
Not exactly.
Yeah, she can't sprint 18 miles an hour.
So they were like, hold on.
Unless she's like really like damn near Usain Bolt speed, but
Yep.
like for a 14-year-old girl, that's most likely not the case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially with her dog.
Yeah. So definitely has something to do with that bike.
It has something to do with the bike. So they're like, okay. They finally find a way to get into James Sr. and James Jr.'s house.
Mm-hmm.
They use the fact that they sell weed against them. They looked into, who in the family has a weed growing, selling license, and they find out that James Sr., James Jr., and the mom have weed selling and weed growing licenses, and they're only entitled to 36 plants of weed.
Okay.
So, they kind of go on like, we're just randomly searching to see if you guys are following the rules type of timing. And they find out that they are growing more than 36 plants of weed in their home.
Figures,
right?
Figures.
Nothing surprising. So that's when they're like, okay, great, because you guys are breaking the rules, we're gonna arrest you.
Yeah, and then now that you arrest them, now that gives you grounds to then say, well, we have these criminals here that we think.
Well, they were already criminals.
No.
They were
so we have these
criminals.
We have these already convicted criminals
Not funny, but
that are now doing another crime that we also feel like are connected to this crime. So now give us something so we can go search their house.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that's literally the grounds that they went on to a judge to be able to go in and search the house.
Yeah. Which is clever by the police. Clever.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
They got the tricks up their sleeves. But they go in, they got the warrant, and the mom is pissed. The mom is like, you guys are horrible. You guys know they're innocent and they're not doing anything. You guys are just coming here to try and pin this on us, So, but meanwhile, while they're investigating and looking into the house, James Jr. and James Sr. are arrested. They're in jail. So they're looking into everything, obviously without them there, only the mom and James Jr.'s girlfriend. And they go into James Jr.'s bedroom and they're like, this is disgusting. This is nasty. They look, and the house, that part of their house was weird. It was running on a generator. Which is odd. There was a bucket of water, like a big, some big bucket of low buckets. They had a big bucket of that in the bathroom full of water. There were clothes hanging over the bathroom, over the shower. And the clothes that were hanging over the shower were the same clothes that James Jr. showed the detectives. So they're like, why are these clothes hanging over the shower? This makes no sense.
Yeah, they were sanitizing.
They were sanitizing. Exactly. So then they look.
But it's
into
weird.
The rest
like, why
of
is
the
that
house.
part of the house running on a generator though? Like, what the?
It gets wild. It gets wild. I'm telling you. So they're like, okay, this is disgusting. They start looking into everything. Part of his desk, he had a desk with a computer on it, and the desk was full of bottles of like soda and socks and tissue paper and old food that was smelling up the place. So they start talking to, obviously, the mom and the girlfriend. The mom is like, hey, my son didn't do anything. She's never going to talk. She's never going to say anything.
Yeah, she's not budging.
So the girlfriend's like, yeah, ha, 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 yeah, my boyfriend, ha, ha, ha. A few hours into them interrogating the girlfriend, she kind of breaks a little. And she's like, all right, I'm going to tell you guys the truth. Because you guys are here, I feel safe. Because James Jr. is not here, I feel safe. I feel like I can leave. And they're like, leave? Apparently, James Jr. met the girl when she was 19 and he was 27. It's a pretty big age gap considering he was a little bit more older and she was like very young and very fresh into probably adulthood and life. So they were like, okay. She starts telling them he was very nice at first. He was very kind, very loving. And then he just became controlling and evil. And he would talk to her crazy and he would hit her. He would take away her phone. She would never had a phone. She didn't have a license. She didn't have an iPad. She had nothing, like zero. And James Jr. would control her. James Jr. would go and look at her Facebook that she would log into on his computer. So they looked into they asked her, do you know the password to the computer? And she was like, no, he doesn't let me use it. I don't know. So then they're like, interesting. They take the computer with them. And obviously they take more things with them, the clothes. They see the helmet. They see a helmet. And that helmet was sitting in, it was like probably near a window. But then they remembered this helmet was used in one of the descriptions.
Yeah.
That the guy was wearing a helmet, the same color. When they look at the helmet apparently had some like little microfibers and streaks. Like, you know when you clean the mirror and there's like little puffy things left over, and sometimes if you don't clean it well enough,
There's streaks. Yeah.
It looked
Also
just
microfibers like from like a cleaning cloth.
Or a towel.
Yeah, towel, yeah.
So they were like, that's interesting. So he literally grabbed all that stuff and took it. Plus the witness of the testimony of his girlfriend, who was, I guess, being partially held captive because she didn't have contact to the outside world. She didn't have a phone, like we mentioned before. She just was there with him. Oh, and the reason why that part of the house with James Jr. and the girlfriend ran on a generator was because that's what he used to control her. So whenever he would leave, he would immediately just turn the generator off. So he would be in the house, he would turn the generator on, the lights would work, the toilet would work, everything would work. But then when he left, he would turn the generator off. And there'd be no lights, the toilet wouldn't work, she'd have to flush the toilet with water from the bucket, things like that.
What? But why? Like, what did they ever reveal? Like, why? Or he's just a psychopath.
He's just abusive.
Yeah.
He's just he's just a weird, abusive man.
Okay.
So
he's seeming like suspect numero uno now.
Yep. Yeah. It's completely shifting. So they cleared the boyfriend Austin of any suspicions they had of him killing April. They did research. They confirmed his alibis. They talked with his friend who lived 45 minutes away. They talked with his other friend that lived right nearby. And they also verified it with footage. Austin had said that day he went through a McDonald's drive-thru. And they checked the McDonald's footage and there's him in the drive-thru, in the driver's seat, picking up some food. So he was completely cleared. He didn't do anything. Which was, I guess it was good to know and good for him, because your girlfriend just died mysteriously out of nowhere. And now they're looking at you and now you're suspect number one. Like, that's kind of crazy, you know?
Can't even grieve properly.
No, you can't, because now they're like, you did it. And you're like, no, I didn't. I'm sad, you know? But so now days later, they're trying to get a written confession from the girl, the James's junior girlfriend. And she ends up telling them that she knows that he did it. He basically, when the police officers left that first day, they went over to his house to question his family. Once the police detectives left, he told his family to basically just, if anyone ever asks, on July 24th, he wore those K-Swiss sneakers. And she was like, what? She was like, why? What the fuck? But she kind of, because he was so abusive, she kind of didn't question him, because she knew that he would like hit her or, you know, abuse her in a way. And she was kind of like, I better just not say anything and just keep it to myself. So when days before he got arrested, he told her, he said, if you ever say anything, if you like cooperate with the police, I'm bringing you down with me. She was like, fuck. But because he got arrested and kind of everything worked out, that's when she ended up telling the police and, you know, all that stuff. But then now with the written statement, she ended up telling them, hey, James Jr. told the police that he was in Armada that the day that April died. But he went from Armada back to his house and then back to Armada to pick up his sunglasses. But his girlfriend confirmed that that was a lie, that he never came back home for his sunglasses. And he got home at 8 p.m. So he was acting really suspicious. And that same day that he came back home, she apparently was able to see her Facebook from his mom's iPad. And when she saw what was on Facebook, he showed it to him. And what she ended up seeing was April's like girl dies in Armada memorial type of newsy thing that ends up on Facebook. Like, you know, when someone dies and everyone's like sharing it.
Yeah.
She saw that and she showed it to him. He literally just read it. So James Jr. just read the article and was like, here, and gave her back the iPad. Didn't say anything. She was like, huh. And then the next day on July the 25th, he told her to do some laundry. She's like, you've never asked me to do laundry before. And he gave her the clothes that he wore that day. And then to confirm it, she was like, I know he wore his favorite pair of sneakers, his Jordans. There's like a pair of Air Jordans that were his favorite. And he ended up wearing them the day that he killed her. But when the police went to the apartment, they couldn't find those sneakers.
Well, not apartment, his house.
Well, his house, apartment. But when the police went to his house, they couldn't find them. So, but she confirmed that he was wearing them. So they were like, where is it?
Yeah.
So that's what was interesting.
So that's how they know for a fact, because they know that the sneakers that was the imprint that was on April were Jordans.
But they didn't know what type of shoe it was. They just knew that the imprint had this like little zigzag type of.
Oh, okay. So then when she said that shoe and they probably checked it, then it's like, oh, that matches. So that's how we know she's telling the truth.
That's how we know she's telling the truth, because why would she lie about that?
Yeah.
So then afterwards, after getting her written statement, they end up receiving the information from the app. And remember, we had said this before, like they received the information from the app, but they received like the video confirmation of like how the app looked that day that she was using it. Okay. And we mentioned before that she was running around a lot in circles. But what was insane was that you saw her taking her normal path, and then as she's walking, she kind of deviates off a few times. As normal when you're walking with a dog, you know, the dog wants to pee, wants to go sniff here, you kind of like zigzag a little bit. But she went into the trail. She went into the woods twice. The first time she went into the woods and went around maybe like for maybe 5 minutes, and then she came out and was walking. Afterwards, after walking in the trail for a little bit longer, she ended up in the woods again. But she was in the woods for 15 minutes. And then from there, the phone, the app tracked her going at 18 miles an hour. Those 18 miles an hour were very, very important, because that's how you can also see where the phone ended up, in the same like little bushy ditch area where the cops and the dog found it in. So the app literally just confirms everything. Yeah. That she did. And it also shows like the police ended up timing it out where they saw, okay, after running the first 5 minutes inside of the woods, running in circles, and then getting onto the trail, she messaged her boyfriend Austin and told him, hey, I almost got kidnapped. So what ended up happening was that they found out that she ended up being chased by whoever killed her, and then got out, texted her boyfriend, and ended up back in the woods. And then no one ever heard from her again. But what's funny is when she was being chased the second time, she made a phone call 3 times. And it was to this random number that they couldn't figure out what the number was. And in the court documents, that never appeared. They never said anything. Whose number she was calling, it was just this like mystery thing. Okay. So now the police are just trying to find any ties that, you know, there might be between James Jr. and April, but they couldn't find anything. James Jr. is like in his like mid to late 30s. April was like very young teen. So they're trying to figure out, okay, like who is it? Like what's the connection? And the only connection that they found was that James Jr. had a 14-year-old son that went to the same school that April went to. But it was just this big coincidence. Like they couldn't find anything else. No text messages, no similar contacts or people that know each other, nothing. And that's what was insane to the police, was like, why would he kill her then? What was his motive if they didn't know each other? So then now they start digging deeper and looking further into, you know, James. So now they start trying to really finalize and hone in on everything with James. while he's still in jail. They're trying to figure all that out. So they're trying to get all the evidence together and figure everything out. But because they couldn't find the sneakers, which was the tying piece of evidence of everything, because the detectives couldn't find the sneakers at James Jr.'s house, they ended up kind of like taking they ended up taking James's girlfriend's word for it and just looking up the sneaker and ordering it in the same size that he was. So they got the sneaker and they matched the print on April's body to the shoe, to the bottom of the shoe, and it was the same. And they showed that in court, which is apparently really gruesome, which it is, because in court they matched it up literally directly with the picture. So now imagine seeing a dead body with like shoe prints on it and the shoe on top of it. Kind of like brings
like reenacting
kinda
kinda.
Yeah, it kind of brings that back. So now they went to court a few years like maybe like a year or two later, 2016 I think, yeah, he ended up in court and they found him guilty on all charges based on everything, based on where everything was, based on where her phone said she was, based on where they found her phone, based on the motorcycle, just all the evidence stacked up. And because like obviously they couldn't find the sneakers and have super DNA evidence, everything else led to them knowing that James Jr. did kill April.
Yeah, and I mean, he is in the area of the crime. His girlfriend, who has no idea about the details of the foot, like the fact of like how April died and how the footprint is super important to the case.
Yep.
But she was able to say, hey, like he did not wear those K-Swiss. He wore these sneakers. And they went out and bought those sneakers in the same size and everything matches up. It's kind of like, what more do you need?
Yep.
You know, yeah. So that makes sense.
That was like the damning piece of evidence, and there was so much evidence that it took the jury a long time to fully deliberate, and like they knew that he was guilty, but like it took them
you're about to send somebody to prison for the rest of their life. You want to be 110%
exactly
sure that they definitely did this heinous crime.
Yep.
Yeah.
And after all of that, after, you know, the case finished and he got his sentencing, more information came out. And apparently there were two even crazier pieces of evidence. April was in the woods that second time running around for about 15 minutes. So the app shows her running at crazy time, like speed differences. So there was a period of time where she was still for maybe about 2 minutes. There was a period of time where she was maybe running or sprinting for about 3 minutes. So for about 15 minutes of time in that second time she was in the woods running, she was fighting for her life. So like that second time was it.
So he was hunting her down.
Yes.
At that point,
yes.
Like he's like running on foot, chasing, or he's probably chasing her on the bike. And she's hiding.
Well, no, she was
running.
He was more chasing after her because one of the witnesses had said that they saw the bike on the trail,
just parked,
but no person, just parked.
So he was chasing her on foot.
Yeah. And then when they checked his cell phone pings. When they checked James's cell phone pings the day that April died, they noticed that the pings matched up exactly at the same time to where April was, to where everyone saw him. So they were like, yep,
yeah, it's definitely this guy.
It's definitely him. Yeah. And then the piece of evidence that made it even worse and really gave the prosecutors like maybe a theory to run behind was the fact that they went over his computer, the computer that he wouldn't let his girlfriend use, and they found Google searches that asked questions like, why is this younger girl not attracted to me? How to make women like you? How can why doesn't a younger woman want to have intercourse with an older man? Why do younger, like questions like that, like just weird questions,
which would kind of like I'm trying to look for the word. It's kind of like a look into his mind as to why he took out so much aggression when he hunted her down.
When he hunted her down.
Because, yeah, he was probably trying to, I guess, pick up April in a way, like talk to her like that. Like, not necessarily coming off aggressive from the start, but probably on some just trying to see if he can pick her up kind of, and she just wasn't with it, clearly. That's why people saw her looking uncomfortable and him walking next to her and all this stuff.
Right.
And then after getting denied, rage.
So prosecutors believe that the first time that April ran into the woods, she was snatched by James Jr. into the woods, and then she started running away from him. She was obviously scared and was like, what the hell? And then the second time, that's when he probably got more enraged because she ran away. So he ended up probably chasing her down, grabbing her again with no one around, putting her into the woods a second time, and then actually chasing her, trying to get to her. And prosecutors believe that the reason why he kind of like put his feet on her and stepped on her and stuff was because of his anger with probably a previous interaction he had with another woman.
Okay, yeah.
With another younger woman at least. And it just falls around his anger of not being able to get a younger woman or not able to.
Which would also explain,
you know what I mean?
would also explain why he's so super abusive to his young girlfriend at home. And
no, apparently she was very into it. She fell in love with him because he was charming, he was sweet, he was kind, and then he just switched up. It wasn't like I'm not into you anymore. It was more of like his personality just changed. Like the coin just flipped.
Yeah, which is typical for like serial killers or, people that do these types of crimes, like Ted Bundy and Rodney Alcala, like those types of people.
They just completely switch up.
Yeah. They're pretty charming at first, and then they kind of switch up.
Switch up. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what they believe happened, because he also tried to appear single on social media, apparently.
Okay.
On his Facebook profile, he deleted his girlfriend as a friend.
Yeah.
So that he would seem single.
Okay.
So they were like, clearly, like, you have this weird fetish. Like, you met your girlfriend, your current girlfriend, when she was 19 and you were 27. You guys had kids, like, you guys were together, you switched up, and then now you're searching all these weird things on the internet.
I'm confused. So how does his son live? His son that's 14, that's the girlfriend's kid too?
No, that's apparently
that's from a
whole different
okay, gotcha.
woman.
Because I was gonna say they have kids, but so I'm assuming they had kids that lived
with them. Apparently, she had one kid with him, and at the time he was 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he has 2 kids, 2 separate women, but clearly he has issues. Yeah. And then to top this all off, the mom gave a compelling statement, during closing after the jury deliberated. Of course, we all know that they gave him life in prison because, come on, dude, you're not going to get anything lesser than that. And he got what's that thing?
Parole.
No parole. No possibility of parole.
Yeah.
They gave him no possibility of parole, life in prison. So the mom, April's mom gave a very compelling speech, was like, I hate you. You took away her life. You took her away from me. Typical parent stuff. But James Jr.'s mom and James Jr., their speeches were very like, you're just trying to attack me. You want to hurt me. You're framing me. It was that day. He never took accountability for what he did. He kind of just tried to like play it off. As if like it wasn't anything that he did. It was just a mistake. And then his mom backed him up. Wait,
so he was trying to make it seem like he made a mistake by doing it, or he just tried to basically say like, I'm the wrong guy. You guys have the wrong guy.
He a little bit of both. He did a little bit of both.
That's how you definitely know you're guilty, when you do both, where it's like, yeah, I did it, but I didn't really do it.
You guys have the wrong guy.
You guys have the wrong guy, but I did it.
And then his mom kept backing him up, which is what made it worse.
Yeah.
His dad ended up in jail for a year.
On the weed thing?
On the weed charges.
Wow.
So that's where that gruesome story ends. It's not a pretty... None of these cases are easy to go through. None of these cases are easy to look at and think about, whether it's a serial killer or just an individual murder. This one is just a little bit more gruesome because we know the details of how they found her body, the condition that her body was in. We know, because we know that as the public. You know what I mean? Yeah, none of these cases are easy to go through, but I think understanding them and learning something from them is very important, especially, cases like these where you live in a small town and you kind of trust everyone around you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I just don't understand it. Yeah, being too friendly, leaving your doors unlocked. Oh, nothing ever happens in this town, so we're only going to have 2 cops and the security presence. Because a big part of having a big police force is not so that you can just solve shit when it happens. A big part of it is also having a presence there to prevent things from happening.
It's preventative, yeah.
Yeah, like in New York, there's a lot of cops and there's a lot of people. So there's a lot of crime that happens before the police get there. But there's a lot of crime that also doesn't happen because the police is there and people know that. Yeah. So when you live in a small town, like, look, this guy didn't even live in Armida. He came out there to do a crime.
Yeah.
But he also probably was aware that the police presence out there is not a lot, right? It's like trying to commit a crime, let's say in Central Park. Like, it's a very big park, but it's also not as easy to execute midday.
No.
Because the police presence and the people
not like
presence,
how he ended up killing April Millsap like that.
Exactly.
Not in the middle of the day or even like at
that,
5 p.m.
Yeah, like that would be kind of tough. Now, back in the day, a lot more crimes used to happen because police presence was down, cameras were not really around, and all those things. But nowadays in 2025, like, a lot of things happen in Central Park, but still it's not as, like, people aren't as brash to even try it. So even when you live in these small towns where almost nothing happens, I'm always still a big proponent of being as safe as you possibly can, not going on trails by yourself. Like, even as a male, I'm not going on trails by myself.
You never know what's out there. It could be a
You
bear.
never know what's out there. It doesn't matter if you're walking
anything.
your dog. It doesn't matter if you know half the people in the park. Like, it's just unfortunate that a lot of times, and I'm not saying any of this is April's fault or any of this is her parents' fault. I'm just saying, it just sucks to hear these stories happen in places that people feel like things like this never happen. And then when you look up, it's because somebody else that's not a part of your community, you're just so vulnerable to an outsider just coming in and doing it because you don't have the police presence.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very
so
true.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I'm glad that April Millsap and her family got justice with this sicko locked up. I'm glad that the girlfriend got some justice with this sicko locked up. And just be safe out there.
Yep. And use your apps.
And use your apps.
Because that's what saved her. That's how she solved
Yeah, turn on that
own.
Find My iPhone, have an Apple Watch, have all these things that can track. That way people know exactly where you're at all times.
Funny enough, this is completely off topic outside of true crime, but also like health apps. There was this young woman who was using an Aura ring, the rings that track your sleep and things like that. And the ring kept alerting her that something was off. It kept telling her, hey, you have some alerting issues. And she was like, I don't have anything. I don't feel anything. And finds out, I think she had some sort of like disease. I don't remember if it was cancer, but it was something larger like that.
Yeah, you see.
It's
so
not
like
just
fitness
safety,
apps
it's
are like pretty good too. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So So this has been another episode of Voltage and Villains. If you guys enjoyed this episode, like the video, share it with a friend, subscribe to the channel for more of this content. And if you have any cases that you want us to cover, leave that in the description box down below. Until next time, take care.
Bye.